How old are you again, RC?
I'll be 65 in October. You got to run the clock out. You don't want to just roll over and eat baby food for the rest of your life. I'm Richard Cunningham, that's RC, and I am a technical editor here at Pinkbike. And I get a lot of people asking me, why do you guys do $10,000 bikes every month? Why don't you guys test some affordable bikes, you know, like we could buy? So I thought, I'll take that challenge. But first, I had to figure out what affordable meant. I didn't have to look very far. Pinkbike recently did a poll, and we found out that $4,000 was the most the average person would want to pay for a mountain bike. So I figured I'd start with $3,000, and I searched around for 3 examples that kind of was the whole gamut of what a modern trail bike would be in that range. So the first one is this Norco Fluid. It cost $2,800, around there. It's got 29-inch wheels, minimal travel, pretty sprite bike. And I figured that'd be the average what a real mountain bike is in the modern world. And over here, from England, we have the Whyte G-170, excuse me. And this bike is as monster as you're gonna want. 170 millimeters of rear travel, 180 up front. This is a Transition Scout Ally, pretty new bike. It costs $29.99, and it represents the pointy end of the spectrum. This is a trail bike that you can actually take down the big drops, do some jumps, from guys that know exactly what that's all about. So we're gonna take these 3 bikes out on the trail, and we're gonna give them a rip. It's one of those do anything bikes, but not on the low level where it's a trail bike and you can go up and down some tough stuff. This bike's built to do the tough stuff, and it's also a trail bike. And it's got everything that you really want without the price tag. So let's start with a drivetrain. This is SRAM's NX drivetrain. It's their most affordable 12-speed in the Eagle. It's got 9mm inner width rims. You're gonna want wide rims if you're riding trails because it gives you stability, better steering, the tires hook up on their edges much better, and that's what everybody's running now anyway. And this one's got it stock. Minion DHR and DHF tires. This is what works best on the North Shore, and that's what comes stock on this bike. This is a 4-bar horse link type suspension, and it's got a RockShox Deluxe, just basic deluxe shock, and with a climb switch. So if you're going to climb, that makes it firm. You switch it over there. It opens it up for the downhill. You'll love that, especially on this bike, because it's got a little soft suspension when you're pedaling, a little bit of bob. You flip that switch, it's all over and it climbs well. Up front, we've got RockShox Revelation fork. This is one of their best value forks. I've never ridden a RockShox Revelation bike that I didn't like. I mean, you can hit anything as hard as you want. It's got lots of support for pedaling and cornering, and it never goes all the way to the O-ring unless you make a huge mistake. This is one of my favorite bikes because it's got everything you need, handling wise. It's from a company that knows how to make a bike for the Pacific Northwest, which arguably is some of the most technical riding, even for the easy stuff, that you'll get in the world. So if you pick up this bike, you're basically saying, I'm gonna hit the stuff. Someday, I'm gonna hit the big stuff. And this bike will allow you to do it. You can start as a beginner, you can go all the way up to a pro level. This is probably the burliest bike in the test. Well, it is the burliest bike in the test. It has 170 millimeters of rear travel and 180 millimeter travel fork. It's a Yari. It's proven to be unbelievably capable. It's got compression adjustments, rebound at the bottom, pretty simple, but the internal damping is set up well enough so that you really don't need to worry about this fork. It does the job. It really kicks butt. Also, inside here, there's inserts, and if you don't know what inserts are, they fill the tire about halfway with foam. When you hit a bump, the tire hits the foam and it cushions it against the rim and also gets the suspension working at the same time. This is the NX SRAM group. It's a 12-speed. It's their lower end group. It's, as I said before, it's one of the best values you can get. Super wide range, low gears for climbing. And up here, this is one of the more sensible bikes. This is a 30-tooth chainring, and a 30-tooth is a little lower than you see on wheels with 275 wheels, but you're going to have to climb some real steep stuff in order to take advantage of this bike. It's got a 150 millimeter dropper. It's Whyte branded, so my guess it's about the same as all the LEVs and a handful of other branded posts, but it works pretty good. It hasn't failed on me yet. And Whyte also is super into sealing everything where mud can come in. These guys are from the UK. They live in the rain. These guys are probably amphibians, but they don't know it. So this is sealed. Even the internal clamp here is sealed. All the bearings are double sealed. Everything on this bike is made so that you can pressure wash it or ride it in the muck. And that actually adds value to a bike. It's going to last longer. It's going to be more fun. And you won't have to buy a bike in 2 years when everything starts creaking. Yeah, the Whyte 170 is the heavyweight of this group. It's 34.5 pounds, which is more than you'd ever want, except this has inserts in the tires. Heavy duty. You could race an enduro on this thing. It's that needs nothing. At this weight, it's sensible, especially considering its price. This Whyte is actually probably the least expensive enduro racing bike you can buy. If it had 29-inch wheels, it'd be perfect, but with 275s, it does great. Then you aim for the point here, and then gravity takes over. One drop, two drops, and this gets janky. Hit the berm, and you're home free. When I first started this thing, I thought the Whyte, with its 27.5 wheels and heavy weight, kind of funky paint job, was going to be my least favorite, but it has become my best friend. It's got the perfect geometry. Short offset fork works really good with these wheels. And you know, what kind of bikes come with inserts? I mean, that's $160 right there. And you have to do it if you're going to do free ride or enduro on any bike. So basically you buy this thing and go. You know, there's always a downside to any bike, and there's two on this one. The first one is the wheel size, and I appreciate the fact that this 27.5s roll great. This one's set so you can run plus size tires up to 3 inches on the rear and the front. So this is a very versatile bike. But right now everybody's switching to 29ers, and with all of the pluses on this bike, I would love to have ridden this thing with 29-inch wheels to get the extra rollover at speed. And the second one is, I mean, really guys, a World Cup downhill bike weighs 34 pounds. I mean, the Trek team is racing 34-pound bikes. I mean, this is going to make you fit if you're carrying this up and down the hills all day, and I can vouch for that. So this is a Norco Fluid, and it's based around 29-inch wheels, which is a huge plus in my book, especially for a minimal travel bike. This has got a 130 millimeter RockShox Revelation fork, which is one of the best forks in this category that I've ever ridden. And it's got a minimal rear suspension as well, and it's got trail tires. Now these are WTB Trail Boss, and they're 2.6, which is a large volume, comfortably riding tire. But if you look at these knobs, this is not Northwest material. This is the kind of tire that you'd run for fast rolling, flowy trails with loamy corners. And the stuff that I'm doing on it today is about where it is in its comfort zone for technical. I mean, you can ride this as hard as you want, but the person that's going to be buying this bike is going to be looking for the adventure, the longer trails, the longer climbs. They're not going to be looking for the pointy drops and the scary stuff. So let's go over a couple of things that make this bike really nice. One of them is that with 29-inch wheels, every time you pedal, you're going a little bit farther down the road than a smaller wheel. So you're going to need lower gearing. This is an NX Eagle SRAM 12-speed, and it has a 30-tooth chainring, which is brilliant on Norco's part, because these are tough climbs out here, and on a bad day, your legs are going to hurt. So the 30-tooth chainring, instead of a 32 or a 34, is going to give you that lower gear in conjunction with this 50 on the Eagle 12-speed to get up the big, pointy, hard climbs. And guide brakes, they're next step up than you'll see on most of these bikes. With the NX, you usually see the lower level brakes, but guide brakes are actually easy, really nice, feel on the trail, hard to skid unless you actually want, with all the power you need when the scary stuff happens. 35mm bars, 50mm stem. It's pretty much standard fare for trails these days. Now look at these little details here. Someone decided to smooth off all these welds, which makes the bike look close to a carbon bike. I mean, if you're carbon curious and you don't have the money, this looks pretty close to it. But that's a nice detail on an entry-level trail bike. When I first got on this bike, because of the large tires and little heavier wheels, because 29-inch wheels have more rubber, and rubber is the heaviest part of the wheel, it felt a little sluggish. But I tuned up the suspension a little bit, changed the compression damping slightly, and now I think this is a pretty sporty climber. Not so much that it's just rushes ahead with every pedal stroke, but the larger wheels and the 2.6 tires, it erases all that little tiny stuff, so you don't really have to pick the perfect line. You can roll down the trail and keep your eyes ahead, which makes you a better rider. So all in all, this Norco Fluid is the kind of bike that you'd use for long distance riding, hill climbs, all the fun stuff, flowy trails. It's really a true trail bike. And with 29-inch wheels and this kind of spec, you really don't need any more. This is a great deal. So thanks for watching Pinkbike's affordable bike feature. These 3 bikes really impressed us. What I learned most was that you can buy a hell of a lot of bike for $3,000 these days.